Okay, that was, excuse me for a second. I guess the first half hour, I'm not positive. Should be getting a new supersonic memory card tomorrow. Tomorrow on Monday. It's already been ordered, supposed to be delivered tomorrow actually, but I know they won't deliver it on Sunday. And you won't have all these chapter 13, part 1 and part 2. And one of them, 16 and 17, no, it was the era of remembrance. We couldn't get anything done with Movie Maker or the converter. Nothing was working. We finally went straight from the memory card that we had, and then to create and pull that. But anyway, it got divided into 6 pieces. One of them, most of them about 9 minutes long, which is probably something most video watchers like. But one of them was 1 minute, 27 seconds. And that's just embarrassing. But anyway, that'll presumably stop, that this thing will go a full hour and a half without the interruption I just had. The Hebrew noun pesher. Again, this was their kind of equivalent to the Midrash and commentary on the Scripture. The Hebrew noun pesher is found in the Hebrew of the Qumran scrolls in the sense of, this is in quotes, meaning, explanation, interpretation. It is similar to Midrash and the Talmud. Various biblical texts were deemed prophetic and were subjected to pesher interpretation, even when appearing to non-prophetic literary contexts. A copy of the pesher of Hallah dates to the beginning of the 1st century Common Era. That would be the century Jesus was born. The pesher of Habakkuk attributes this technique to the founder of the community, teacher of righteousness. The Qumran sect, like the broader Jewish movement from which it sprang, took a critical view of the established orthodoxy of its time, believing Israel to be under divine judgment, regarding itself as the true remnant of Israel, and awaiting its imminent vindication at the end of days, as they call it. That's in quote, end of days. At the end of days, evil would cease. The wicked would be destroyed, and the righteous would live under a divine blessing. Okay, that's the day of the Lord. This is what he's talking about. There's about 7 prophets who mention the day of the Lord, and they all read pretty much like that. Some of them are more graphic as to evil being put to death in all kinds of various ways, this and that. But it's not a total end of the days of the earth. It's just an end for the evil people. People who do bad things. Okay? All that is completely changed when you get to Malachi 3, God's last words on the day of the Lord. And the reason it's written like that by all these other prophets is because that was antiquity. That's what they needed to hear. I want to build my house and live in it myself. People just drag me in, throw me in. I grow crops. They come and take them and eat them. They take my kids into slavery. You know, get rid of them, God. That's what they wanted to hear. They wanted to hear stories about it. You know, there's a story, Jesus fed 5,000 people with 2 loaves of bread and 5 fish, or 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. I can't remember which it is. 5,000 people. Yeah, but that's what they wanted to hear. These people are sitting out there listening to storytellers just going, oh, I'm so hungry. I'm so hungry. Oh, tell me about food. You better believe it. And a man who is God? Oh my gosh. You got to have one of those. That's why they love this story so much. And this is why these rabbis or learned men in the Hebrew Bible were the Essenes themselves. You know, God has a story that's so funny. He said, yeah, see, this guy Shlomo and his buddy David were going, had been expulsed from Israel, the promised land, and we're heading towards Europe. And Shlomo says, you know what? We ought to put that story of Jesus, which everybody just loves. I always get a lot of food and money with that. We ought to put it within the Hebrew Bible as a it's prophetic of it. Of course, they didn't do the manipulations that Christians do to make it so. They hurt themselves enough. Believe me, the greatest lie and deceit in the history of mankind comes from the lips of Jesus, and it's in their book. Yes, it is. It's in one of the prior chapters. Look for oh, never mind. Anyway, it's before chapter 19. Again, I'm redoing them all because God had me repost, let's re-download and re-upload all my 50 chapters of the book that I've put on tape. Everything I do is from that book. And to some extent, the life of God's righteous servant when it comes up. It's been getting a lot of views lately. But, what's that? I need to hurry it. What was it? The Qumran sect, like the broader Jewish movement from which it sprang, took a critical view of the established orthodoxy of its time, believing Israel to be under divine judgment. Okay, I just read that. This is not unlike the teachings in Judaism today of a redemption, restoration, and exaltation with peace throughout the world when the Anointed One comes, who will perfect the world, build the temple, have the entire world speaking Hebrew. I'm Moshe, and I can tell you right now, that's not going to get done by me, by myself. That's not going to happen. And that's with God with me. And He makes me a lot better. You know, He's knocking my emotions down to nothing. I don't anger as quickly and as wildly as I once did, and it doesn't feel the same even when He makes me angry, which He does every day. And He did say, you know, Ezekiel, you know how you know he went through the fire refinement? Other than the fact he got pinned to the ground for over a year with his hands handcuffed behind his back in the cords of God's power. And he wasn't allowed to turn side to side. About 40 days of all the time he was on the ground, he got to turn to the other side. And it was for the sins. Think about Isaiah 53. He's wounded for our sins. It was for the punishment of the house of Israel and the house of Judah. Well, their punishment is because they were sinning. You may as well say for the sins of the house of Israel, you know, a punishment commensurate with them. But Ezekiel, I mean, you know, he's a good guy. He's aghast. He's being maltreated. That's how he would feel. I do too. You know, I'm a sinner. You know, I kind of fell into all of them except murder, one way or another, at one time or another. But I mean, I wasn't a habitual sinner. Pretty good guy, lawyer, you know, helping other people. But what? I gotta carry on. Thus saith the Lord. Redemption, restoration, exaltation, peace throughout the world. perfecting the world, building the temple. Everybody's face Hebrew. It did not happen for them. Moshiach did not come in the time, because they were destroyed when the Jewish revolts came in 70. Yeah, they had to get out of town too. That's why we had the Red Sea Scrolls. They put them in great pots or something and buried them. And the whole Qumran community was ended up being destroyed, along with the temple. And everybody was driven from the land. It's just Rome. And of course, Rome eventually falls, and they're not there. And anyway, that's the history of Israel. It's pretty complicated at times. And again, all this stuff comes from Rambam. But your rabbis teach it as though it's coming from the Hebrew Bible. I never hear them say, well, this isn't actually in the Hebrew Bible. This is what Rambam said. I've never heard them say that. No disclaimer. And yet their followers who don't really read the Bible, they just assume this is coming from God. This is something God said. And who doesn't want it? Knock out evil. Or take pain away. I'd be all for that. I've lived a life of serious pain. I got over 20 surgical scars. I was shot to the abdomen from 2 feet away. I impaled my right knee on a broken Coke bottle sticking out of the ground, all jagged like this, stuck in the ground. I was running. My dog ran between my legs. Even though I had reason to believe somebody turned my dog in that direction in his power. I go flying through the air, came down on my knees, but one of my knees came down on that bottle. So I'm in the hospital, and first doctor says, I can't do anything with that. We're gonna have to take it off. It was that bad, But no, I guess you could say a miracle happened. A doctor came by who could do it. I'm starting to blur again. Huh. I don't know if it's the card, but I have it on autofocus. This isn't supposed to happen. Well, sometimes it comes back on, so it comes back to a correct picture. I really don't want to have to start this again. Josephus Flavius describes this sect, the Essenes, as one of the main 3 philosophical sects among the Jews, with a very detailed description. Excerpt from his book. Again, you see how much writing's going on back then, but yet nothing's written of Jesus in this time. Wars 2, chapter 8, include the third sect, which pretends to a severe discipline. These men are despisers of riches and very communicative, as raises our admiration. And as for their piety towards God, it is very extraordinary. That's from the Jewish Virtual Library. What do you want me to do? Well, I still got plenty. What's that? Hold on one second, please. Page. Oh, there it is. I got about one more page to from the book God dictated. I put the whole, if you look at the details, you get about the first 2.5 pages of that chapter. That's all the whole for 5,000 characters. Now I got to find my place again. Okay, they despise riches and worldliness. You know, as Jesus said, it's very hard for a rich man to get to heaven. He did the same thing, despise material things and riches. Paul and Peter all said Jesus was the fulfillment of Isaiah 53 and a teacher of righteousness. All of Christianity does today, which just boggles the mind that 2 billion people have been deceived when with your own eyes you see it cannot be him. Wasn't crushed with disease, wasn't exposed to death, he died. Did not offer himself for guilt to God, which is the fire of refinement. Again, the people, the first 6 verses, they're all suffering from guilt for not obeying God's commandments, laws, and rules. Their lives are a mess. First 6 verses are combined by quotes. The people who say, who can believe what we have heard, are the same people who say, he was wounded for our sins. Our guilt was laid upon him. Okay? And it's written so that, well, that's too long of a story. But there's a purpose in all of it. But the main thing is nobody can figure it out because God doesn't tell you about the fire of refinement, the boot camp for prophets. But we find it in Ezekiel. You can see him going through it. He you know, God told him, Ezekiel, go to your house. I bind you with the cords of my power, and you shall not go out amongst the people. Isaiah, this is verse 8. He was cut off from the land of the living. Cut off. Means he couldn't get to it. All right, cut off from society. And silent as a lamb. He wasn't talking to anybody. Yeah, he's in there. Yeah, well, he told me, go your room. I don't have a house. I take care of my elderly parents who are in their 90s, and they have a condominium, and I get room and board for doing all kinds of things around the house and helping them out, doctors and everything else. It really was tough, but in the last 3 years, I finally started receiving Social Security. I give most of it to them to pay them back for the 13 years they carried me. But while I did this, while I'm doing God's work, you know, he told me, you're not going to practice law anymore. We're going to let your licenses terminate. No more seminars, no more sending money. That was the second week. I said, what am I going to do for money? He said, you're not going to have any. And I didn't even respond to that. I was just, just like, okay. What does that even mean? I've never not had any money. Whew, those early years. We got to do a book, just the early years. And there'll be another book on my life, towards the end of my life, after I've gotten to Israel and how all this pans out, and little extra stories on God and his personality. He's not just the angry God of the Torah and the Hebrew Bible. His personality is far-reaching. Yeah, it's from, the most perfect person you ever wanted to meet. Nice, friendly, caring, to, a demon on the other end. He was mean. Capable of heinous acts. Oh, I forgot. Clearly, okay, well, I got to finish this. This thing keeps blurring. I'm probably reaching 30 minutes, too. According to Josephus, the name of the gate in the southern wall of Jerusalem on Mount Zion was called the Essenes Gate. They had their own gate where they would tell stories. And of course, they would hear about Jesus if he wasn't a myth, which he is. Yes, he is. Certainly is. 3 religions of Abraham, only one's going to be right. It's the God of the Jewish people. That's who it is. No, there's no Allah. There's no Jesus. That's just the way it goes. Somebody's got to win out. Somebody's got to be right. Why not the poor Jews who went through the Holocaust and the hatred of the world for so long? The world which failed in being kind to the children God chose. Yeah, you all deserve a slap on the wrist, so to speak. The Essenes were writers and copyists and had their own gate in the southern wall of Jerusalem. Their founding leader claimed to be God's righteous servant, and so did Jesus. It is impossible to believe that the Essenes had not heard of Jesus. It is impossible to believe that they would not have gone to Jesus to question him and verify the stories around him and his claim of being God's righteous servant and right about him. A man that healed the sick, removed blindness, had the crippled walk, fed 5,000 people with 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish, walked on water, turned water to wine, raised the dead, was crucified, and 3 days later came back to life. I think he'd write about that. These people would. But they didn't. The Essenes were present in and around Jerusalem for 100 years before the birth of Jesus in the story, and another 40 or so years after his death. At the age of 30, by most accounts, in the first written story of him and his life in 70 Commentary. There's not one word written by the Essenes of Jesus. There's no account in the New Testament of Jesus and an Essene. They don't mention the Essenes. You know why? I think it's because they're known as writers and copyists. And whoever was putting that book of that first gospel together said, don't even mention them. They write about anything. They're like reporters today, I guess. I know it's blurry, and I'm almost done. Bear with me. I don't want to redo it. There are no writings by Jesus. Nothing was written by his disciples. There are no writings by Herod and Pilate or any Roman newspaper, poem, or book of this man who healed the multitudes, fed the poor, walked on water, raised the dead, turned water to wine, was crucified and rose from the dead to human life, and then rose to heaven. It's just not out there. 2 more paragraphs. While there are 3 Gospels under the names of 3 disciples, they are all considered pseudepigraphic, which in Greek means falsely attributed. You would write something and then oftentimes attribute it to a character in the story, just to give it more veracity. Writings which were attributed to authors who did not actually write them. And they were all written long after his death, full of quotes and teachings from Jesus himself. Quoted parables, and long speeches, and long sermons that could not be accurate if passed word of mouth. There's only one answer. The Essenes themselves are the beginning of the stories. The Essenes were the personification of the man Jesus. They were persecuted, and many lived in the country away from the city, as did Jesus. He lived off in his disciples off in mountains near Jerusalem. They maybe different mountains every night, I don't know. They were persecuted for their beliefs and disliked the Pharisees and Sadducees and the high priests. Jesus is a myth. I challenge you to Google myth, and you'll see Jesus just jump right out at you when you see how a myth is described. He never existed, in the story of Jesus, and his life does not fulfill the verses of Isaiah 11 or 53. The Hebrew Bible is not prophetic of Jesus. That needs to be told to your Jewish friends too, to the extent you have any. The wrath of God. Jewish people, you're his servant. You going to help me or not? Build the temple, which I would have to be intricately a part of, I'm sure. Well, I can tell you, yeah, that's the land God wants. Yes, this is what it looks like. He just had me type this. Here's the specs. Yeah. And as a descendant of David, I can be made given the power of attorney. Keith E. McCarty, representing the group who raises the money, because that's what's so important about the Temple Mount. King David purchased it for God as a restitution for failing a test God put before him after he had taken actually it was a 3-part test, I think. Or he had 3 ways to go on it, and basically he failed. And he knew it. God, of course, forgave him. But he purchased it. That land is the Temple Mount. He purchased that for God. But, I'm a twig. But I'm on his ancestral tree. If this is what's so important, people, if it's a hang-up, I mean, why haven't you built it? Build the temple, never defeat it, disperse again. Don't build it. When God comes, he's coming with utter destruction to the land of Israel. And what he means is his creation is going to bring utter destruction to you, Jewish people, Israelis. You know, why don't your rabbis teach that? Maybe it's because it puts you in a mood that you don't want to donate. Maybe they just you like to hear about no pain in the world perfected, evil gone. Huh? Yeah, that's what Rambam did too. And that's where they get it from. And that's why they're all dismissed. Because that's what Judaism is today. Whether a particular rabbi teaches it or not, he is part of Judaism. Nothing else. He needs to be proactive. In any event, dismissed. I am the only teacher he recognizes. That's in the Hebrew Bible. And I teach these books. And I'm doing it right now. But I'm not going to go build a temple by myself. What does that even mean? If Moshiach does that, he is the Moshiach. If the dead rise, he is the Moshiach. Look, this guy, he's in the early Middle Ages, okay? Still believing in the resurrection of the dead, which we, by and large, don't believe in anymore, despite all our movies we enjoy. You just can't take the dust of people 1,000 years ago and make them human again. And God provides for you. You got to know how the Bible reads. You can take apart. This was written for antiquity. That can't happen today. And this was for us. Chapters 1 through 10, 1 and 10 of Ezekiel is spiritual heaven. The eyes and the wheels and on the creatures are the spirits of the Jewish people being picked up left and right, east, west, north, south. And then in chapter 10, same groups, same creatures, lift up and take this wheel works that they're in, the spirit's in, to God's house. I was going to say platform of heaven, but to God's house, and God is above that. He's there. That's spiritual heaven, people. Okay, but what do we have in 37? God says, Ezekiel, let's go to the valley of bones. Ezekiel, say this, rise, old bones, rise. And out of nowhere, flesh and muscle and internal organs and stuff start slapping on those bones, and they become the people they once were. Okay, you want to believe in that? That's it. Sorry for the blurring. And again, I'm getting equipment that'll hopefully take care of this. Thank you for watching and listening. I mean, I'm looking at it too. I can see it on my viewfinder. It's awful. But I know you can hear me also. It's kind of like video and radio combined. Thank you.